Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being here. I'm Ashley with the Writers Guild, and I'm pleased to be doing this intro for the 2024 Alberta Literary Awards finalist reading, our virtual reading. Huge congratulations to all the nominees. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are on traditional territories of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Alberta, and express gratitude and respect for the land we use, pledge to end systemic racism, commit to advancing reconciliation, and partnering with Indigenous peoples in our work with arts councils, sorry. Please join us at the gala as well on Saturday, June 8th at the Coast Plaza in Edmonton. Tickets are still available, and we hope to see you there. And I will now pass it along to Jason Norman to introduce our first reader, Antoinette Bekker.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ashley. I'm Jason Norman, and I am in Edmonton. And this is our awards finalists online reading. We did a Calgary one, we did a Edmonton one, and then we get to do an online one. And this will be, obviously, if people are watching it live, it's on the YouTube, and then people can watch the recording afterwards, which is pretty nice to have. So we will get right to it with our first reader is Antoinette Bekker. Antoinette's love for the prairies, her experiences as an immigrant, and her career as a psychiatrist all inform her writing, which has developed into her own brand of prairie burlesque. She completed Calgary University's Creative Writing Certificate in 2022 and is enrolled in an MFA in fiction at the University of King's College. She uses a strong voice, humor, and a satirical tone to write contemporary women's fiction focusing on aging, mental illness, and animal rights. And this year, Antoinette is a finalist for the John White Memorial Award for Unpublished Essay. So take it away, Antoinette.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everybody. I'm Antoinette Bekker, and I will be reading from my essay, The Sensibilities of Dogs. It was 2005. A thunderstorm raged 1,000 miles away in the city of Maputo in Mozambique. A river flooded its banks, spat up dead cows and dismembered shacks as a man clung to the remnants of his life. In South Africa, we drank yeasty Prosecco so dry it made our mouths pucker. We had passed our Master of Medicine exams and celebrated our future. Private practice or academia. Jack wanted to teach. I dreamed of a doctorate. It was cold and rainy outside our house in suburban Johannesburg. Frost nipped at the last of the season's African lilies. That year they bloomed with purple abundance and refused to let go when winter came knocking. They clung to the extravagance of summer and concocted a perfume with asters, hibiscus, and honeysuckle. They ended up dead that winter's night. Inside our house, steam from the stove condensed on the inside of the kitchen windows. The drops shone, formed rivulets, flowed this way and that, pooling teaspoonfuls of water on the windowsill next to the African violet. She was white, a pretty little flower. I think about her often, how violet is only a letter away from violent. That night, a man came into the cocoon of our kitchen. We were a family, me, Jack, our dogs, Mongol and Boo Boo, my loves. The man showed up and we became a quintet, soon, as if by magic, a septet. Jack cooked supper. I gave Boo Boo a talking to. She'd bitten the plumber's assistant earlier that day. Granted, the bite left more of a bruise than a laceration, but one did not go through life assaulting others willy-nilly. I wagged my finger at Boo Boo, holding forth on the dangers of impulsivity. I should know, ha ha. I was expected to become a linguist or at least a lawyer. Instead, picked medicine on a whim. The man stood dripping on our clean kitchen floor. Jack laughed at my red nose and the wad of tissues stuck up the sleeve of my Eeyore pajamas. Ooh, he said, his face mock excited. Aren't we sexy tonight? Shut up. Pajamas don't always have to be sexy. Sometimes they have to be comforting. I love those PJs with Eeyore embroidered over the right breast. My best friend gave them to me. I poured gasoline on them and set them alight with a Zippo lighter. While I talked and Jack added a pinch of this, a pinch of that to the stew, the world went about its business. Farm accidents, music lessons, famine, snotty noses, heart attacks, floods, torture, supper, rapes, celebrations, etc., etc. The phrase that reminds me of Aunt Peggy, my Latin teacher. She sometimes brought scones with butter, Marmite, and sharp cheddar cheese to class. She had such hope for me and my potential. That was before I turned impulsive and became a psychiatrist. She never fed me scones and cheese again. Anyway, hope and potential seldom come together. A man stood in the kitchen and threw my African violet violently. It shattered on the tiles into shards and shreds. It might have been June or July. The exact date? What does it matter? Who cares that we got burned by the energies of angry men? Or why? Why? Or when we left? Or where we arrived? What's this? What's this? The man hissed, the silencer on his pistol long like a lizard's tongue. It swung a wild arc between us and our dogs. His combat boots were the color of mustard. He dripped mud and water on my clean tile floor, scrubbed that morning with Mr. Muscle. But I said this already. Such is the nature of memory. It confounds us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. This category is always an interesting one because this is the only category for the literary awards that the juries read blindly, so they don't know who they chose until we announce it. So that's kind of fun. So thank you so much. The next reader is Kate Boorman. Kate Boorman is an award-winning author from Edmonton with roots in the small town of Rimbey, Alberta. Her books for young readers have been published in 4 world territories and have appeared on a variety of best of lists from the Ontario Library Association to the Oprah magazine. The first book in her acclaimed Winter Kill trilogy won the Alberta Writers Guild Award for Children's Fiction. Her newest YA thriller, Into the Sublime, was a 2023 YALSA YALSA Best Fiction for Young Adults. Her middle grade debut, The Heathens and the Dragon, released fall 2023 to a starred Publishers Weekly review. And Kate is a finalist for the R. Rossinet Award for Children's Literature. Take it away, Kate.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks so much to everyone for being here. So I'm reading from my book, Into the Sublime, which is a psychological thriller / horror for young adult audiences. It's about 4 thrill seekers who enter a cave system in search of a rather legendary subterranean lake, and only 3 return. And so as the book opens, our narrator is being questioned by police as to what happened down there and what happened to the 4th girl. But before that, we have an image, and then we also have an email from that girl who gets questioned, who narrates the tale. So that's where I'll start. I'll just start at the beginning and go from there. The body appears on a crisp October morning, breaking the glassy surface of the lake like a soft bubble of air escaping from the depths. There's a moment of stasis, several seconds where the corpse is still, framed by an apple-pink sunrise, autumn sweetness in the air. Then it begins a languorous drift toward shore. Auto forward, Dark Legends, from Asphyxia A, subject, surfacing. I'm using the contact form on your site, which is probably weird, but also my only option. They're monitoring my email. I'd give you some space, except I can't stop thinking about it. and I need to ask the one person who can explain it, the surfacing. I don't know how it happened exactly, but I have ideas about how it looked, how she looked. You probably know all about it by now. You probably know that it took 3 months for her to appear out of nowhere, like an ember sparking to life in the ash. You know some backwoods local found her, a surprisingly long way from the caves, changing that particular corner of Colorado's woods forever. You probably weren't surprised. I haven't messaged the other girls. I think they need more time. 3 months isn't very long, no time at all, really, to move past what happened down there. The dark changes things, but you know that. I sent you all the details like you asked, even though you already knew them. Everyone already knew. My testimony wasn't public, but these things get around. People love tragedy. I guess I do too. I'm a little obsessed with the moment of her surfacing. I like to tell it like a story, in honor of Sasha and her way of looking at things. I have a habit of trying to emulate her storytelling, but of course, you know that too. I can picture it in my mind's eye, clear as day. The body appears on a crisp October morning, breaking the glassy surface of the lake like a soft bubble of air escaping from the depths. There's a moment of stasis, several seconds, where the corpse is still, framed by an apple-pink sunrise, autumn sweetness in the air. Then it begins a languorous drift toward shore. One of the locals, a boy, is organizing himself for one last fishing trip, maybe illegal this late in the season, at the pier. He glances up, sure the prize weight pike he's been after all summer is giving him a final chance. Pikes are known to sit on the surface like that when they're hungry. He dials his brother in his excitement. Get down here quick, but pauses when he looks again. No, not a pike. No fish at all. Call Dad. In a half hour, all of Upward Junction, population 38, is gathered at the water's edge. The body has come to rest against the wooden pilings, face up, bobbing like a sunseeker on a pool floaty in mid-July. Hair drifting like a silken, seaweed-colored cloud, skin luminescent in the morning sun. A shapeshifter, morphing from the grotesque to the sublime. The crowd is perplexed. She isn't one of theirs, isn't from around here. And with one road into Upward Junction and no visitors in days, there's only one way she could have arrived. The confluence, the hidden source that feeds their lake. She's emerged from that underground river, which means she's been beneath the mountain and traveled a long way, miles maybe, to grace this shore. They call the cops and wait. No one dares touch her. No one dares disturb that repose. When a white patrol car finally crunches across the gravel, it's 1:45. Deputy Vargas didn't receive the message for the better part of an hour, and Meeker is a 20-minute drive down the mountain. She steps out of her cruiser, shading her brow against the Colorado sun, and eyes the residents of Upward Junction on the shore. Her small, strong frame moves with purpose as she starts down the bank. She stops shy of the crowd, a pressed lip nod indicating she has, unfortunately, been waiting for this. She takes a breath to ask them to disperse, give her room. Upward Junction isn't nearly as remote or unlawful as the spot the girl disappeared, but authorities aren't common around these parts. These people are bound to linger, gossip, maybe even give Vargas a hard time on account of her being an outsider. But the resignation on Vargas's face, young girl, go on now home, I'll handle this, cracks when the residents step back to give a view of the body. Her eyebrows knit as she leans forward to peer closer, then shoots skyward. Her face drains of color, disbelief, a stunned pause, and then she fumbles for her cell phone. At least, I like to imagine it that way. Vargas is the deputy who handled the investigation and my arrest. It makes sense for her to be there. She's there, and she's rethinking everything I told her that day. But I can't quite picture what happened after that. It's ghosting around my thoughts, slippery and unformed. It's there, waiting for me to catch hold, see it, understand. I don't blame you for anything. I made my choice and I take responsibility for that. I see now how alike we are and how very different. But I do want to understand. Help me understand. What happened when she surfaced? Amelie. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. That sounds really good. Our next reader is Jennifer Bowering Delisle. Jennifer Bowering Delisle is the author of 3 books of lyric nonfiction and poetry, Micrographia 2023, Deriving from 2021, and The Bosun Chair 2017. A new collection of poetry, Stock, is forthcoming in 2025 with Coach House Press. She is also on the board of New West Press, and she lives in Edmonton in Treaty 6 territory. And Jennifer is a finalist this year for the Alberta Literary Award for Memoir. Take it away, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks to the Writers Guild of Alberta. So I'm going to be reading from Micrographia, which is a collection of lyric essays. It's about becoming a mother at the same time as losing my mother. The piece I'm going to read tonight, it's a short piece, and it's more about the first part, more about motherhood. And just a heads up that it references in kind of a general way rape culture, but there's no specific violence being depicted here. It's called Okay. When my son was barely old enough to speak, he came down with a stomach virus. All night he vomited, wailing, "I'm okay," between heaves. "I'm okay." It was not a reassurance, it was a plea. I had given him these words. Every time he fell, I comforted him in a sing-song voice. "It's okay, you're okay." I knew in my grown-up brain that the cut would close, that the goose egg would recede, that he was, in fact, okay. I meant to comfort him and myself. But it was a kind of plea then, too, when I knew in my brain I didn't always know in my pounding heart. A little older now, and he knows the names for most of his feelings, and he is learning how to read them, learning that each letter on the page is a sound, that together the sounds make the words. But he has read the books before, completes the sentences with what he thinks is there. Sharks have lots of teeth. Very sharp teeth. I show him the world the way I show him pictures on my phone, snapshots we can scroll through. A shot of beauty, a shot of silliness, a blurry glimpse of filtered pain. If someone tried to hurt me, I would just hit them. But that wouldn't solve it. You have to use your words. Sometimes bullies are really just lonely. Maybe you could try to be his friend. Is this really what I want to teach him? When my child has a nightmare, do I tell him it was only a dream? Or do I tell him, I understand, you are afraid. I am afraid. He is listening to the radio, learning the language of the world between the music. He absorbs justice. He absorbs Supreme Court. He knows the word hearing. It is what his ears do. Like listening, only listening is a word we use when we really mean being bad. You are not listening. What does it mean then to be bad? We tell him, you're not bad. You sometimes do bad things. But he sees the world in terms of good guys and bad guys, those with capes and those with sneers. Both have weapons, both have power. Now you're the good guy, he says when we wrestle, yet the game does not change. It is bad to color on your face with a marker. It is bad to throw toys, except for balls. It is bad to scream, unless you are hurt or really in danger. It is good to hug when you are sorry, but not always. Ask your friend first if it's all right to hug him. When someone says stop, you stop. Your sister doesn't like that. Look at her face. Don't worry, he says. I'm a good shark. He knows there's no such thing as monsters, as vampires, with coffin beds and hidden fangs, things that could bite our necks, remake us in their image, things that could challenge the boundaries of being human, make us live forever, make us fly. No, Monsters are not real. We have told him so. Have I ever eaten blood? He asks one November morning in the car, with the iron taste of winter on his tongue. We are listening to the radio. I absorb ruling, like rules, only there are none, only rulers. What does it mean to be good? You are good if they believe you are good, if they believe you are good enough, if they believe you over her. You are good if you are a good director, if you are a good novelist. That sitter told him he was a good boy if he didn't cry when his mama left. He stomps on my foot by accident, but it's okay, he assures me. He takes his sister's toy, hears her cry. But it's okay, he sings. It's okay. And I'm realizing my mistake. I have tried to get him to think about how the other person feels when he does not share, when he hits. But I have neglected to teach him that sometimes you can't know what someone else feels, that sometimes people are not okay, that telling them they are doesn't make it so. Why is it so dark? He asks one November morning. Because in winter, the earth tilts away from the sun towards the blackness of the universe. We have traveled 470 million kilometers in space since the summer began. Is this what I need to teach him? Turn on the lights, my daughter whimpers from her car seat. Yes, there are bad guys and good guys, but there are also those who think they're good, who think that everything belongs to them, like children do. Those who tell us it's okay and almost believe it. Those who tell each other it's okay and do believe it. It's okay as a warning. It's okay as a gag. It's okay as a calloused hand stroking reassurance across bared skin. We are listening to the radio. He is listening. Do you know that letter? N. What sound does that make? N. N. What do I want to teach him? We don't color in books, on walls, on our skin. Yet bodies are pages to be read. When you look at them, see that they are already covered in words. We don't hit or scream unless we are really in danger. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you. Our next reader is Natasha Deen. Guyanese-Canadian Natasha Deen is a best-selling author with novels for kids, teens, and adults, and she's a recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal. Her novel, In the Key of Niragani, won the Amy Mather Teen Book Award, and her most recent YA title, The Signs and Wonders of Tuna Rashad, was a Globe and Mail's Top 100 Books for 2022. When she's not writing, she teaches Introduction to Children's Writing with the University of Toronto's SCS and spends an inordinate amount of time trying to convince her pets that she's the boss of the house. And you can find Natasha on natashadeen.com. Natasha, take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, friends. So I was also at the Audrey's reading, and I was joking around with everyone that, you know, when you're a Guyanese kid, you grow up being taught that the ancestors watch over you, and they always are. They're looking to protect you and to, you know, help you live a good life. And so you must always be aware of your surroundings and your environment to see the signs and the messages that they send. And that this is a very, very good way to make children behave when you are not in the room with them. And so in The Signs and Wonders of Tuna Rashad, Tuna is looking to the ancestors to help her win over her crush, Tristan Dangerfield, and as well to help her with her older brother, Robbie, who's lost his husband, David, quite suddenly. In this scene, Tuna is racing from the rec center to the soccer field because she is absolutely determined that she is finally going to ask out Tristan. If you're parked in the lot, Tristan asks, why are you here? The world stops so suddenly, I feel its anti-lock brakes engage and the seatbelt snap across my chest. It's painfully obvious from the tilt of his head that now is not the time to confess that I came racing out here to meet him. Even in my head, that's solidly in the creepy girl section of behavior. I thought I left my sweater out here. The lie is out of my mouth so fast, I'm amazed my tongue was able to form the syllables. Up in the heavens, I'm sure the ancestors are doing rum shots and shaking their heads at how I waste the chances they send my way. What color is it? He turns to the kids. Did anyone see a sweater? He spins my way. Color? Okay. I've studied enough screenplays and movies to know that this could be one of those small moments that snowball into wild hijinks, slapstick, and misunderstanding. Fine. But I'm more of a regular rom-com kind of girl, and I think Tristan is too. Under no circumstances am I going to allow for any off-the-grid shenanigans. It's fine, I say. I don't see it out here. If anything, I'm sure it's in the lost and found bin. A cute little with braids puts up her hand and points in the distance. I saw a sweater over there. You did not. I adjust my tone from liar, liar, pants on fire to you're so amazing and try again. You did not. I did, she said. It was pink. Was your sweater pink? Tristan asks. That's an easy no. Not only am I decidedly not missing a sweater, even if I were, it wouldn't be pink. I can't stand that color. So why do I suddenly hear myself saying, yes, it was, as though I'm in a remake of The Body Snatchers? Me too, says another little. I saw it. Me too. Suddenly, everyone's seen the non-existent sweater. I'll get it. A little girl jumps up. Shenanigan alert, shenanigan alert. No. Everyone said, I'll go and look for it, I say. But this is a good moment for us all, right? About paying attention to where we leave our stuff. That gets me serious nods. Bless little kids and their default programming that makes them think anyone older somehow possesses the wisdom of the ages. I turn to Tristan. Sorry, I'll let you guys go. My haste in leaving has less to do with manners and more from the worry that he's going to ask about the sweater. Sure, thanks, he says. I spin from him looking for my flip-flops, get my feet caught in the hem of my dress, and pitch forward. There's a moment of stumble, then his arm is around my waist, pulling me upright. Our eyes lock. You okay? He asks. I nod and a few of the kids giggle. Tristan and I exchange a smile, and there's something in his eyes. A flicker, a twinkle, a chance. I have a chance with this guy. And sure, the heroine falling and being caught by the hero is both cliche and wildly overused in movies, but sometimes you gotta go with the trope. Especially when it moves the story along, and especially because this is life, not art. If this was a movie, for sure I'd have on makeup and the lighting would be way better. Plus, there's a good chance that my ancestors have given up on giving me any chances that are truly unique. Knowing them, knowing me, they've probably opted for the tired and true cliches until I prove myself worthy of creative opportunities. I'll take it. Both they're watching over me and getting another chance with Tristan. Thank you so much.
So you're saying there's a chance. Thank you so much, Natasha. People could have figured it out, but I forgot to mention that this year you are a finalist for the R. Rossinet Award for Children's Literature chapter book, along with Kate. And thank you again for the reading. Next up, we have Julie Sedivy. Julie Sedivy is a writer and linguist whose love of language extends to many literary genres and whose work often intertwines aesthetic and scientific perspectives. Her publications include 3 books of nonfiction, a forthcoming children's picture book co-authored with Suad Shahab, a non-boring textbook on the psychology of language, and an edited volume of personal essays co-edited with Rona Altros. She was a finalist for the W.O. Mitchell City of Calgary Book Prize and for the Eggleston Award for Nonfiction for her book Memory Speaks on Losing and Reclaiming Language and Self, and was the 2020 winner of the John White Memorial Essay Award. Her essays and articles have appeared in outlets such as Nautilus, the Literary Review of Canada, Scientific American, Discover, Politico, as well as in various anthologies. She is preparing to launch her genre-blending memoir, Linguaphile, A Life of Language Love, in October 2024. And this year, Julie is a finalist for the John White Memorial Award for Unpublished Essay. Take it away, Julie.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you, everyone who is watching today. I'm going to be reading an essay that actually is from my forthcoming book. And as it happens, I just got the galleys a week ago, so I can actually read from a book version of it. The title of this essay is Prosthesis, and it refers to reading. Throughout the essay, I use the metaphor of a prosthetic limb to convey the idea that reading is really a linguistic artifact, something that we have to attach to ourselves from the outside. Unlike spoken language, or even signed language for that matter, we're not born with a capacity to read. It has to be quite painstakingly learned and taught. I spend some of the essay explaining why reading is such an unnatural cognitive activity. But the piece is also an ode to the transformational power of reading in my own life. And as I was writing it, I also had in mind some of the discussions that have been swirling around in the last couple of years around book bans. And I wanted to respond in some way to the impulse that some people have to try to control the reading experiences of children. I think as an impulse that's deeply misguided and really underestimates children. And I realized how incredibly fortunate I was to have grown up in an environment where not only was literacy actively promoted, but I had unfettered freedom to read. So I'm going to dive in about 2/3 of the way into the essay. As a child, I used to watch a television show called The Bionic Woman, in which a tennis player who survives a near-fatal skydiving accident is surgically rebuilt with artificial limbs and implants. The reconstruction leaves her better than before, endowed with superhuman strength and the ability to hear the slightest of sounds over extraordinary distances. I was fascinated with this show, which flaunted an idea that would soon drench our culture, that technology could not only restore us to ourselves, but leave us enhanced. Its techno-optimism was a stark inversion of the tragedy of Mary Shelley's Dr. Frankenstein and his botched creation, written a century and a half earlier. Shelley's Dr. Frankenstein dares to blow his own breath of life into an inanimate thing. But tragedy ensues because he can't bring himself to embrace his creation as his flesh and blood. The gulf between human and artifact cannot be bridged. And yet, the novel itself would never have come to life had it not been for the artificial implantation of literacy into human minds. By the time she wrote her novel, Mary Shelley's brain had no doubt embraced text as if it were indeed her own flesh and blood, as if reading had budded and grown within her. She had been enhanced. When I learned to read, to really read, so that the marks on the page ignited thoughts the instant my eyes passed over them, I felt myself transformed into someone with new powers. Like the bionic woman who could overhear conversations from miles away, I suddenly found myself privy to the thoughts of people who were not in the room. People who could never be in the same room as me because they lived oceans away, or were far more important than I was, or were dead. I enjoyed intimacies that were impossible within the limits of my physical world, even had I been blessed with poise and charm, rather than being the shy, poorly dressed immigrant kid that I was. Next to my literary companions, my conversational partners were pitifully few in number, and those I had were all more or less alike. They were unlikely to reroute the path of science, or to rouse a freshly founded nation, or to murder anyone. The fact that all this took place under the cover of solitude is what transformed me from one kind of child to another. Reading allowed me to vault beyond the grasp of parents and teachers and their ideas of who I should be and how I should think. In retrospect, I find it slightly odd that the adults in my life who professed to be concerned with my formation smiled so benignly when they caught me reading and then left me alone. There were certain girls, not to mention boys, whom I would not have been allowed to bring home. But as long as they could be hidden between the covers of a book, I could smuggle any dubious companion into my room and shut the door. In solitude, I could revel in their influence, egged on by their scandalous lives and outlaw philosophies, free to think or feel whatever I thought or felt about them without the burden of commentary or moral guidance from the official authorities in my life. There was no price to pay for the enhancements I gained, unlike the bionic woman, who was powerful but enslaved. Her implants, financed by a federal agency, were a debt she had to repay with years of docile servitude as their undercover agent. I did not repay my benefactors in any way, least of all with obedience. In fact, I wonder, would the adults in my life have been so willing to take up the labors of instruction if they had known how my eventual mastery of reading would dim their power over me and strengthen my own? How it would foment my rebellion against them? Reading was sheer liberation from the limits of my here and now, from parents and teachers, in the end, even from the authors whose words I consumed. I was a pliable child, easily molded by the approval of others. When people spoke, I monitored my own responses as if through their eyes. Did I display on my face the right shadings of assent or outrage? A conversation often left little room for my own thoughts. I was too busy rearranging myself. But inside my fortress of solitude, invisible to the author, all my doubts and quarrels could run free. There was no hardness of a bodily presence against my mind's soft clay. And if the author's words failed to have their desired effect, I paid no penalty for it. It was in those hours of reading, particularly of books that appeared in no curriculum, that I quietly incubated my own power. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next reader is Josée Thibeault. Josée is a writer, translator, director, and actor. Born in Trois-Rivières, Quebec, she has been calling Edmonton home since 1994. She writes for the theater, film, television, web, radio, and podcasts. Her narrative voices are carried by her many alter egos as she delivers spoken word poetry and monologues on stage. Her solo performance, La Fille de Facteur, The Postman's Daughter, produced by L'Uni Theatre in March 2019, was featured at the Festival Zones Theatrale in Ottawa and toured in Alberta. Josée lives, loves, plays, works, and creates in both French and English. And Josée this year is a finalist for the Gwen Ferris Ringwood Award for Drama. Josée.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to the Writers Guild for including a book in French. This is pretty cool. I'm very honored to be amongst you wonderful writers. So as my bio said, La Fille du Facteur is not a typical play. It's kind of a hybrid type of writing, combining spoken word poetry, monologues, and more theatrical bits. So yeah, the postman or mailman, La Fille du Facteur, the mailman's daughter, that's me. So it's autobiographic. There's some words like that. It's just yeah, my father was a mailman in Trois-Rivières, and Trois-Rivières is also the capital of pulp and paper. and also the capital of poetry. There's a big international festival of poetry in Trois-Rivières. But my father, unlike most men in his family, he didn't work in the paper mills. He was a mailman. So he was delivering letters, paper. And I myself became sort of a femme de lettres later in life, and eventually a poet. So that's sort of the spark that inspired the story of La Fille du Facteur. Many themes and images are construct this narrative. So wood and trees, but also walking. As a mailman, he walked a lot, and I'm also a big walker, une flâneuse, un flâneur. So this is the story of me going back to Montreal after living in Edmonton for 18 years and deciding to come back to Edmonton because Edmonton was really home. And by the time I came back to Edmonton, my father was sick and he died pretty quickly from brain cancer. So I had all these stories and images, and the way I've been very nomad and between, Western Canada, Eastern Canada, and himself was more of a sédentaire, staying in Trois-Rivières, just walking, doing his work. So all these images and metaphors sort of inspired that story. I'm going to read just one fragment, and it's called La Fille du Facteur. So it's like the genesis of the story. It encapsulates pretty much all the themes and images of the play, of the piece. So it's called La Fille du Facteur. Mon arbre généalogique est une épinette boréale. Une épinette boréale arrachée comme une mauvaise dent à sa forêt coupée à blanc. Mon arbre généalogique est un conifère à pulpe empilé en rondins sur le bouclier canadien. Mon arbre généalogique est une pitoune dravée sur les flots de la Mekinac à la Wayagamac. Mon arbre généalogique est une pâte et du papier usiné, carton pressé, papier journal de la Canadien internationale. Mon arbre, abattu par le bûcheron, surfé par le draveur, broyé par le machine operator de la Kruger. Mon arbre, devenu papier, puis message codé, propagé par le facteur. Mon arbre, mes racines, ma souche, mon histoire, mon identité, en marche vers l'ailleurs. Je suis la fille du facteur. Une page blanche un peu bâtarde, une enveloppe de papier craft, mal léchée, un peu timbrée, une lettre à la poste trop affranchie qui a toujours voulu quitter sa capitale de la poésie. Je suis la fille du facteur, une exilée devenue femme de lettres, car semble-t-il que je suis poète, artiste de la parole ou bien auteur, mais bien malgré moi, comme tout le monde, je gratte de moins en moins de papier, je fixe plutôt des mots sur un écran d'ordinateur. Les forêts d'épinettes noires ont été décimées, les bio ne flottent plus sur le Saint-Maurice pollué. Les portes des papetières se sont refermées, même le métier de facteur est du passé. Mon arbre généalogique est menacé d'extinction, car il n'y aura pas de branche après mon nom. Je n'aurai pas produit de fruits, pas même de fleurs. Il n'y aura pas de pommes pour tomber aux pieds pleins de fourmis de la fille du facteur. Mais je ne renie pas pour autant mes origines. Au bout de chaque orteil, il me reste quelques racines, comme celles des mangroves, qui me relie au lieu de mon enfance. Berceau de mon imagination féconde, quand je me prends les pattes dans les prairies, quand je plonge tête première en zone profonde. La fille du facteur est une marcheuse, un peu bohémienne, un peu flâneuse, car je n'arrête jamais, comme mon père, de me promener. Je fais ma run, je poursuis ma trajectoire, ma fuite vers l'avant, ma quête déambulatoire. Je sais d'où je viens, mais je ne sais pas toujours où je m'en vais. Et je continue d'avancer, une boussole à la place du cœur, car je suis la fille du facteur. Merci.
Thank you so much. I was hanging on everything you said, and I was just trying my best. But that was fantastic, just watching you read that. And it has been a while since definitely since I started working at the Writers Guild. I can't remember a French language finalist. We've had entries, but it's been a while since there's been a French language finalist, and I couldn't even tell you when the last one before this was. So it's pretty cool, and congratulations again. So we have Mieko Ochi. Ochi was scheduled to read, and she sends her regrets. And we also have Astrid Blodgett, who is she's on a writing retreat right now, I think, but she wanted to send something. Of her reading. So we're going to try a little video within a video in a second, but I will introduce Astrid's video with a short with Astrid's bio. So Astrid Blodgett is the author of the short story collection This Is How You Start to Disappear, and You Haven't Changed a Bit. Her stories have appeared in many Canadian literary magazines, in translation in Inostranaya Literatura, a Russian journal that publishes foreign writers, and in the Danish Royal Ministry of Education's English exams. Her first collection was short or long listed for the Howard O'Hagan Award for Short Story, a Relit Award, the Danuta Gleed Literary Award, and the High Plains Book Award for Short Stories. She is a co-author of Recipes for Roaming, Adventure Food for the Canadian Rockies. And this year, and she lives in Edmonton. This year, Astrid is a finalist for both the Howard O'Hagan Award for Short Fiction and also for the Short Story Collection Award. So now, through the magic of Zoom and Google and everything else at my disposal, we're going to hopefully share a video of Astrid reading one of her pieces.
Hello, thank you for being here. Thank you to Jason, and thank you to the Writers Guild of Alberta for setting this up. I'm going to read from my story collection. I'm reading from the beginning of the story called How to Read Water. This was a Friday afternoon toward the end of August, the last of the sunny blue days, the sky strewn with those cotton white clouds, the air fresh, not cold. Kat knelt in the stern and dug her paddle in and pulled, and again and again. There in the bow was a solid mass, a human albatross. Look at him, that lug in the faded green life jacket and two big beige sun hat. You, Kat called to the deadweight, your arm's broken. The lug shifted slightly. No. Then give us some muscle, Kat said, not unkindly. The lump, a boy, made a sound like a grunt. He was Kat's brother, age 11 and a half, competent but indifferent to canoeing. He alternately stared down at the river bottom where it was shallow, and lily-dipped with his paddle when he felt compelled to move his arms. Kat paddled on, her arms like ropes, stretching, pulling. They were on the Athabasca River, well east of the mountain town of Jasper, Alberta, Canada, North America, the universe. She had touched the ink blot splotch of the town site on her dad's paddling map that morning and run her finger along the river from their start, Disaster Point, to their end, 3 days later, 3 days by water and less imaginatively named, the Emerson Bridge Hall Road. Hey, Dad called. He was a few boat widths away in the stern of the Green Prospector. Mom was in the bow. Kat, Jamie, I'll bet you half my Toblerone bar you'll never guess what the big disaster at Disaster Point was. He turned his canoe so that it moved closer to Kat and Jamie's. Kat didn't want to answer. Dad was about to dedicate them with a boring lecture. But she said, only half? And then, I have my own chocolate bar. What? What Disaster Point? Jamie asked. Where we started. The put-in. What do you think it was? Dad gave his wide, toothy, aren't I smart and funny smirk. He wasn't either. He was just annoying. He was probably born annoying, like Jamie was born jittery. Not even going to guess? It's a good chocolate bar. Don't ask me, Kat said. I didn't get to sleep enough last night, and I'm working too hard pulling this lug. I'm not a lug. Jamie sat up and paddled. What do you think happened? Just tell us, Jamie said. Probably a train wreck, Kat said. A railway guy broke his flask of whiskey, Mom said. That was the big disaster. Boys and their booze. It was a big disaster, Dad yelled. It was probably all the whiskey they had for the entire winter. Come on, use your imaginations a little. This was back in the day when there were no roads, no bridges across the Athabasca. You were way off about a train wreck, Kat, he went on, taking a breath. Kat rolled her eyes. There weren't even any trains back then, Dad said. But lots of people think the disaster was something else, something more exciting. Lots of people think the place was named for the pack horses that fell down some mountain cliffs into the river somewhere around here. But that's not the real story. Check out that bird, Mom pointed. There. Back in 1872, one Sir Sandford Fleming, a famous Scottish engineer, was trying to find a way to get the railway to the coast. So you're close with the train wreck. I'll give you 2 points for that. Points, Kat said. Great, points. Sir Sandford Fleming was waiting for someone to build him a raft to cross the river. There, Mom pointed with her paddle. See that eagle? Why didn't he make his own raft? Jamie asked. I see it, Kat said. He was a sir, Dad said. Sirs don't make their own rafts. Anyway, sometime during that waiting time, Fleming lost his whiskey. It was medicinal too, you know. A golden eagle, Mom said. The eagle got his whiskey? Jamie asked. I know, you're not listening, Dad said. Fleming might sound like an old drunk to you, more interested in his whiskey than anything else. But this man, this brave man, left his home and took tremendous risks and did many great things. That's more than most of us can say. If he's so famous, how come we haven't heard of him? Jamie asked. Well, now you have, Dad said. You can thank your father. When you're old and gray and nobody has heard of Sir Sandford Fleming, you can say, I know about Sir Sandford Fleming from my father, rest his soul. Dad stopped paddling for a few seconds to put his right hand on his chest and looked up at the sky dramatically. Thank you.
Well, it looked great on my end. If there was any technical issues, what we're going to do is we're going to upload the video to the YouTube channel, so it'll be nice and clear for anybody that had any technical issues of my video within a stream. So that is our final reader for the night. I want to thank all of the readers today, and we have a lot of very supportive writers in this Zoom room right now because they all stayed to watch everybody else read, and they're being extremely supportive and generous with their time and clapping in the background with their microphones off, but they're clapping and with their cameras on. So I'm going to turn the gallery view on so everybody can say a last hello and goodbye, if that works. And it was fantastic to hear you all read. And like I said just a second ago, thank you very much for being so generous with your time this evening and for sharing your work in this way so that we can spread it online a little bit more for people that may have missed you in person for the last couple events that we did. We're very excited to see some or maybe all of you at the upcoming awards gala in June. And if we miss you, that's okay, because we know where you live. And we can always find you on this video as well. But it was just great listening to you all, and thank you very much. And thanks everyone that was watching live with us and that watches this later on. So thank you very much. And I'm Jason from the Writers Guild, and Ashley's there. She's going to wave. And
Congratulations, everyone. We can't wait to see you in June for the gala.
Yeah, congrats. Okay.